How are you doing? Bill DeWeese here, staring out my studio window at about 6 inches of freshly fallen snow here in the Chicago area. Glad to be inside where it's nice, warm, and cozy in my flannel shirt. Love my cozy flannel shirt and shirts in the wintertime. Today I want to share something with you. I was actually working on this earlier this morning, and it's something that I hear from talent from time to time who ask questions about projects, specifically narration projects, where there's a lot of run-on sentences, which is not, unfortunately, it's not uncommon. A lot of e-learning is not written it's not written well grammatically, or it's written more for the ear as opposed to, to be read silently as opposed to read out loud, which means there's not a lot of consideration given to punctuation and allowing people to catch their breath. So that's on you and me to do that as we read it. What I do, and let me explain what I do, and then I'll demonstrate and show you what I do. Very simply, what I do is I feel my way through the script. By the way, I don't study it ahead of time. I find that most long-form narration projects really, at least in my opinion, estimation, don't pay enough to justify spending time going through and studying it ahead of time. I mean, I'll look at it and I'll read perhaps a few paragraphs to get a feel and understanding of what I'm doing. But in terms of studying it and going back through an entire maybe 20-page script and marking it up and writing in my own punctuation, when I'm doing 5 or 6 projects in a day, it's just not time effective, cost effective for me to do that. So I feel my way through it. So let me explain. What does that mean? Number one, I read intentionally slowly. Most e-learning needs to be read fairly slow anyhow, because remember, people are learning and absorbing on the other end. And it doesn't mean it goes so slow that it's painful, but it may need to go slower than you assume that it does. Certainly slower than most commercials or even explainer video type reads. So intentionally and slowly. And when I read slowly, it allows me to better see the script in terms of phrases. So I try to read in terms of phrases. And at the end of a phrase, even if it's not punctuated, if they're not giving me a period or a comma or some kind of punctuation, I'll still take what I call a sip of breath. A sip means that would be a gulp. A sip is a very subtle, just a very slight breath to allow me to get to the end of the next phrase, and so on and so forth. So in theory, if somebody gives you an entire page of copy with no punctuation, you would be able to make your way through it. Because if you're trying to read just from punctuation point to punctuation point, you'll probably pass out from lack of oxygen in a lot of cases of long-form narration. So those are the two things that I do. I'm slowing down and I'm looking for the phrases that will allow me to take that sip of breath. So what I'm going to do is put the script up here on the screen so that you can see it. And let's see here. Okay, so let me read through it, trying not to take a breath as it's written. There is a rebuttable presumption that the audit plan includes external confirmation of accounts receivable balances if they are determined to be accounts receivable as defined. Okay, I'm out of breath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it intentionally rather slowly, and then I'll find my own places to give a sip of breath. There is a rebuttable presumption that the audit plan includes external confirmation of accounts receivable balances if they are determined to be accounts receivable as defined by AS 2310.34. Accounts receivable include the entity's claims against customers that have arisen from the sale of goods or services in the normal course of business and a financial institution's loans. Now, hopefully you were able, some of those were a little more subtle than others, but hopefully you were able to hear where I actually took some breaths. Now, what I'm going to do is read through it one more time. This time, I will say breath where I'm going to take a breath so that you can get a better sense of how I'm phrasing this. There is a rebuttable presumption, breath, that the audit plan, breath, includes external confirmation of accounts receivable balances, breath, if they are determined to be accounts receivable, breath, as defined by AS 2310.34. Breath, new sentence. Accounts receivable, breath, include the entity's claims against customers that have arisen from the sale of goods or services, breath, in the normal course of business, breath, and a financial institution's loans. Now, if you're reading it slowly enough, the breaths will not seem intrusive. You'll be able to take that and it will sound and sound fairly seamless. However, if you're reading too fast, it will become more noticeable as you're trying to suck in some air when you take those breaks. So again, it's a very simple, low-key way of taking a terribly written script and creating your own punctuation, because this is part and parcel of being a voiceover talent. It just comes with the territory. I hope you find the tip helpful. And if you think it would be helpful to perhaps watch me work on a regular basis, day in and day out, I want to invite you to check out Deweese Members. And I'll put the link in the description. It's simply deweesemembers.com. And these are folks who are part of my group coaching program. We do a couple of times a month, we do group coaching via webinar platform, but also we have our own private Facebook group, and I also stream all of my work every day to this group. So you get to watch me audition, you watch me edit audio, you get to see me interact with clients and record projects and literally everything that goes with being a voiceover talent. It's not just me or somebody else telling you what to do. You get to see somebody who actually does it day in and day out for a living, making a good living doing it, so that you can watch and then duplicate that in your own career. So again, if you want to check it out at deweesemembers.com. Thanks for checking out the video. I hope you found it helpful. If so, please give it a thumbs up, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.